ദൈവഭാവം
Hello.
Mahkamah.
We will be starting the webinar in 2 minutes at 4:05.
Thank you, Kendi.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you can all hear me well.
Yes, we can.
So, good evening.
Yes, we can hear you. Good evening.
Thank you so much. I want to welcome you all to this Manufacturing Task Force webinar. So before we start, I will welcome my colleague, Engineer Veronica, to lead us in a word of prayer. Engineer Veronica, karibu.
Okay, thank you so much. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for such a wonderful moment and opportunity that you have given us to gather in this webinar to deliberate on issues affecting our country as regards to manufacturing. We thank you, Jehovah, for the gift of life, good health for every one of us logged in across the country, and we ask that you're going to begin with us, guide us all through to the end of it. And once we see the end of it, may we remember to be grateful. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Engineer Jedida. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome the chairman of the Beta Manufacturing Task Force, Engineer Professor Alex Mombo, to open the webinar with his welcoming note. Welcome, Prof.
Thank you, Alisaid. And I believe I can be heard.
Yes, we can hear you, Prof.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and partners in industry, I greet you all. Good evening. It's both an honor and privilege to welcome you to this important webinar, where we shall be reflecting on a matter of critical national interest, that is enhancing Kenya's manufacturing sector, the role of government, regulatory bodies, and industry. Participants, looking at Kenya's Vision 2030 and attendant 4 medium-term development plans since 2008, there is no document amongst these that does not address manufacturing, yet the sector has continued to lag behind, and like a toddler, always being held by the hand. Now, 2030 is barely 5 years away. As the Beta manufacturing team, we are driven by a shared concern that the sector, despite its immense potential, continues to operate below capacity. We are also strongly convicted that this sector holds the key to unlocking unemployment opportunities, fostering innovation, stabilizing our trade balance, and ultimately driving inclusive economic growth. Our presentation today, therefore, is not merely an academic exercise. It is a call to action. We will examine the current state of the sector, identify systemic and emerging challenges, and more importantly, propose actionable pathways for improvement. We believe that sustainable industrial growth cannot be achieved in silos. It requires a deliberate and a strategic partnership among government institutions, regulatory bodies, and the private sector or industry. We invite you, therefore, to engage with us as we unpack the levers of policy, regulation, and enterprise that can reposition manufacturing as a central pillar in Kenya's development journey, as outlined in our Vision 2030. Let this be a moment not just of dialogue, but of commitment, because the future of our economy and the aspirations of millions of Kenyans depend on what we do as engineers from here onward. Thank you, and God bless you. Karibuni.
Thank you so much, Prof, for that opening remark. So we will go straight to introduce to you where manufacturing in Kenya started and what are some of the what the current status of manufacturing and some of the challenges that manufacturing is facing in Kenya. So I'm going to introduce my colleague, Engineer Veronica, to take us through that section. Maybe I could request the Secretariat to put the slides on presentation mode. Okay. Just before Engineer Veronica takes us through the introduction of where manufacturing started in Kenya, I want to introduce you to the team of the Beta Manufacturing Task Force. Okay. I'm just having some slight difficulties moving the slides. Okay. So
hello, Sarah. Excuse me.
yes.
I think I have the control. You
Okay,
needed
can you
some.
move to the first slide?
Okay. Can you see
Okay.
my?
Yes,
Okay.
so let's move to the, you can pause there. So this is the team. So we have the Beta Task Force is a manufacturing task force is composed of 7 members. So we have Engineer Prof. Alex Mumbo, who is a professor of mechanical engineering at the Technical University of Kenya and currently in charge of open and lifelong learning. Then you also have Engineer Veronica Mugure, who is a North Rift Regional Infrastructure Development Engineer at Kenya Power and Lighting Company. We also have Engineer Anthony Sang, who serves as the Chief Manager Construction Operations Management at Konza Technopolis. Veronica, you can move. Thank you. Then just thank you. Then there's Ms. Johra Said Ali, that is me, a tutorial fellow in the Department of Chemical and Biological Systems Engineering at the Technical University of Kenya. We also have Engineer Paul Nuthu, who works at the KTDA Regional, who is a KTDA Regional Engineer in charge of Embu and Kirinyaga counties. Then we also have Engineer Mohamud Ibrahim Matope, a Quality Assurance Officer at Kenya Bureau of Standards. And Dina Kendi, who is a Knowledge Management Officer at IEK, supporting the Manufacturing Task Force. So this is the team that is looking at the Beta manufacturing sector. And so I will welcome my colleague, Engineer Veronica, to take us through the introduction. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Jora. Distinguished engineers, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining and welcome to a brief historical overview of manufacturing policies in Kenya and how they have affected the manufacturing sector. Kenya's manufacturing sector is diverse, encompassing of food processing, textiles, building material, among many others. The sector has significantly evolved since the introduction of various policies. Looking at post-independence policy milestones, for example, I have a small chart here, just briefly elaborating on the various milestones that have been achieved in Kenya today. In 1963 to approximately 1979, we had an import substitution policy. This is after the country was coming from the colonial era and needed to build its own economy. and therefore a lot of poverty, a lot of inequalities in resource allocations had been experienced, and therefore the policy was looking at streamlining such. In the 1980 to 1982 was the Structural Adjustment Program, SAP, and this is when the country needed to boost its economic and social development agendas by getting external funding from external financiers to strengthen its economy. In 1993 to 2002, the country focused mainly on policies looking at exports, building its manufacturing base within the country and exporting the produce and earning a revenue from it. In 2003, all the way to 2007, the country, coming from an era where there was poor performance in the economy, looked at the economic recovery strategy for wealth and employment creation. Here I was trying to revitalize its economy from poor governance and poor infrastructures that had been witnessed before. In 2008, all the way to date, some of the main policies that have been witnessed are the Vision 2030, among others, and these are mainly to boost and continue looking into the future on the future of the manufacturing sector. Are you able to see my next slide?
Yes, Veronica.
Okay, looking at the emphasis that were on each of the milestones that I have mentioned in the policies, we can see an element of African socialism. For example, in 1965, just 2 years after independence, there was an intervention such as the sessional policy number 10, sessional paper number 10, of 1965, where the Kenyan government looked at advocating for an economy and social development model based on principles of African socialism. The aim was purely to foster growth of the sector and adapt the changing economic landscape. In the import substitution policy in the 1970s, for example, the country was looking at reducing its imports, self-sufficiency through local production, stimulate economic growth for domestic industries, and create employment. For structural adjustment programs, where the country was looking at external funding coming from external bodies such as IMF and the World Bank, the country was looking at supporting its local economy, and also was forced to look at aspects such as open its trade to external competitors or international players coming into the Kenyan market. It also forced the country to go into privatization, especially state-owned enterprises, where privatization allowed foreign investors to be involved. It also looked at capping or reducing government expenditure, increasing taxes, as well as balancing its own budget. The economic recovery, for example, the economic recovery strategy for wealth creation and employment creation in the 2000s was looking at revitalizing the economy, since Kenya's poor economic performance in the 1980s and the 1990s was mainly attributed to poor implementation of economic policy Vision 2030, guiding the Kenyan development program, and this aims at pushing Kenya into a middle income by 2030. Reflections of the past policies that have been in place through the government, for example, the African socialism, in as much as it advocated for equality and equity, there were still inefficiencies in resource allocations, as well as economic stagnations in some sectors, for example, the textile industry. Import substitution policy that mainly looked at forcing or ensuring that Kenya utilized what was within instead of importing, encountered a number of challenges. For example, a lack of competitiveness within the country, and there was an over-reliance on local production, necessitating reforms to align to the global trends. The structural adjustment programs of the 1990s, these ones really benefited some sectors from the increased efficiencies. Other sectors, such as the textile industry, really experienced setbacks. The economic recovery policy on wealth and employment creation gave valuable lessons for economic growth and sustainable development. This also challenged the lawmakers to balance on issues of economic objectivity with social welfare. In summary, looking at all the policies that have been in place, this being just a sample or a blanket of what has been happening, there is a pointer to a trial and error approach in the economic management of the country. And therefore, there is a call for a context-specific strategy adaptable to the socio-economic scenarios, such as the Kenya Vision 2030. Next, ladies and gentlemen, looking at the current state of affairs of the manufacturing sector, the manufacturing sector in Kenya contributes to approximately 10% of the GDP. Agriculture is leading at 22.4%. This, however, is not wholesome because the manufacturing sector still has a lot to do, bearing in mind that Kenya and Africa at large bears the raw materials for most production in the world. For example, the livestock industry and where Africa owns 20% of the global livestock, only 4% of leather is produced. That means there is extreme potential for Africa and Kenya in particular. Finally, I would like to state that the manufacturing sector has shown promising growth trends, supported by a number of government initiatives and growing domestic market. However, it still faces significant challenges that hinder its potential, including competition from imports and inadequate infrastructure. To enhance the competitiveness of the manufacturing sector, the Kenya government, therefore, and stakeholders must address some of the underlying challenges. This includes supply chains, investing in technology, a favorable business environment to attract local and international investors. Therefore, thank you for listening to me, and I would like to welcome Ms. Jora to take us to the next slide.
Thank you so much, Engineer Veronica, for giving us a good history of how the policies that are enhancing the manufacturing sector has evolved. So I will take up the remote from you, then proceed to the next section. So we have seen that at the moment, Kenya is very much relying on the Kenya Vision 2030. And so we all know that Kenya Vision 2030 is the major goal that is actually giving us a roadmap of our development as a country in all aspects. And so Kenya, the government has developed through different parastatals, different policies that supports and aligns with Kenya Vision 2030, and more specifically in our perspective, the manufacturing sector.
Kindly forward the slides, please.
So I've requested permission to move the slides. Kendi? Okay. I'm trying to move. Okay, thank you so much. So some of the policies that are supporting the manufacturing and manufacturing being a key pillar of the Kenya Vision 2030 includes the following. That is the national. Sure. Okay. Just a minute. Sorry for that. What is happening? My computer is misbehaving. Every time I touch my, it's moving. So we have these key manufacturing policies. That is the National Industrialization Policy Framework that was established in 2012 to 2030. Then we have the Manufacturing Priority Agenda. This was established by Kenya Association of Manufacturers. Sure. Then we also have the county aggregation and industrial parks. This is looking at ensuring that every county has an industrial park, and so there are set policies that are governing that, and the national government is channeling some money to ensure that this is implemented. Then we also have the Big Four agenda, which is which was established in 2018 to present. Then we also have the Special Economic Zones Policy and Act 2015, Local Content Policy and Local Content Bill, the Buy Kenya, Build Kenya Policy 2017, the Trade and Investment Policies, Kenya Industrial Transformation Program, Micro and Small Enterprise Policy, Sustainable Waste Management Policy, Legal and Institutional Reform Sector Plan for Manufacturing and Konza Technopolis. So all these manufacturing policies are trying to look at manufacturing in all aspects in terms of the quality of quality of products that are being produced in Kenya to meet international standards. They're also looking at, for example, the Special Economic Zone Policy. So this is where sections of different areas in Kenya, the government is putting up parks where manufacturing takes place, but they are incentivizing the production and all that, and ensuring that these economic special zones have all the infrastructure in place to ensure achievement of the manufacturing sector. And all these minor policies are enabled by these major two policies, that is the Transport and Infrastructure Policy, the Energy Act 2019, and the National Quality Infrastructure Policy. So up to now, we know that the Kenya Vision 2030 is implemented in 5-year medium-term plans. And according to the latest reports, that is the 20, so we are at MTP 4, that is going to run from 2023 to 2027. And below are some of the flagship projects that have been successful and enhanced manufacturing in the country. So we have the SEZ that is in Naivasha and Gokundu. And what is happening in these economic zones is manufacturing of products that are to be exported. So the impact in these economic zones has been an income of 100 billion plus in exports, plus thousands of jobs. Most of the Kenyans have been able to get jobs in those facilities. Then you also have the Rivertex revitalization flagship project that is in Eldoret. And this is focusing on textiles. So there's been a creation of 3,000 plus jobs and local cotton boost manufacturing. Then you also have the leather park, also enhancing the leather industry. The positive impact on this has been a creation of almost 50,000 jobs and 50 billion in terms of exports. Then we also have the agro-processing hubs. This is enabling the agribusiness sector. Here, there's been a 40% loss reduction, plus 20,000 farmers have been able to send their produce into these hubs. Then we also have the EPZ apparel zones. So this is where most of the textile exports are being manufactured. And the impact here has been a 54 billion exporter of products and 66,000 jobs provided. Then finally, we have the expansion of the Kenya Institute of Research Development here in Nairobi. So there is a project and plan to expand KIRDI to increase the kind of research and prototypes that are being generated from Kenya. So this is to enable, to improve and boost the tech and the SME sector. And almost 1,500 SMEs have been supported. And so the government has been able to provide us a platform by providing policies. But how are they enhancing? What is the key role of the government in enhancing manufacturing sector? So I'm going to introduce my colleague, Engineer Paul Nuthu, to take us through this section. Engineer Paul.
Thank you very much, fellow engineers. I want to echo what my colleagues have said, that the government's role is critical, given that the manufacturing sector, has a contribution 10% to GDP, and therefore I ask for rights to control this rate. The government policy and the regulatory framework, as highlighted by the chair, has been maybe erratic, and that's why we need to enhance this paper and align it and guide the government on how it needs maybe to work better to make sure there is that impact and improve its the contribution it has to the manufacturing sector. Kendi, as you. as you share their rights. So the role the government is supposed to play is very crucial to assure sustainability, so that there is tomorrow for the sector. You have seen a lot of challenges and companies closing shops in Kenya, and therefore we have lost jobs. So we want the government to improve on that area so that there is more development, there is attracted investment, either both locally and even foreign. And then to ensure that it is competitive, our products are competitive to the regional and even foreign products, if there are products coming from China. So the policy and regulatory framework the government has laid, we have seen a lot of policies, and those policies, as you have seen, they have yielded 10%, but we may want that to improve so that there's that promotion of competitive products. There is also attract foreign investment and even local. We have seen that from the target, there was a deliberate target of policies to industrial sectors that seemed to have greatest impact, like the textile industries and agriculture. And if we can draw a parallel to what other developed and even upcoming economies, what they have done, there is something the government can learn, what the European Union are doing. They are integrating their value chains across member states. And we have a case of EU and Germany and Serbia. They have a mining, a product of batteries coming from Serbia and being processed in Germany. And across the EU, they create a circular kind of economy, whereby there's that enabling an environment in that zone. We also learn from South Korea what they did after the Korean War. And it's usually referenced that they had the most rapid industrialization, usually referred to as the miracle of the hand water. If you follow that story, that's how South Korea involved, and their policies were focused deliberately on electronics and automotive, and they were able to revolutionize their industrialization. Malaysia is also upcoming, and they had also deliberate tax targets so that they attract foreign investment. So what they did, they had partial tax exemptions to companies that wanted to invest in their sectors. So there is something that even the government, the Kenyan government, can learn from that. They had investment tax allowance so that they reduced deductions on those qualifying on capital expenditure. So that's something the government can do in terms of those policies. South Africa is also upcoming, and it's also a giant in Africa, and is now focusing on sustainable manufacturing, circular economy. Again, the European Union is also on the circular economy, green manufacturing. Vietnam is also another hub in terms of electronics and textile. Mexico is also upcoming. Those developing economies, they have had a lot of exchange in terms of agreement with Canada. That way, they create a market for their local manufacturing companies. So this what the government, our government, can learn from those growing economies and even developed economies. Next slide. So we have challenges that in the in these policies. We have seen a lot of policies that have been there since 1960s, almost 6 decades. Why are they not yielding that expected results for our jobs and need to grow our economies? So we have seen there are challenges of running government in Kenya. Most companies are moving out due to the burden that is there in licensing and permits. There are expensive processes of starting, even are needed. Startups are dying before they come up. And every year, again, you have seen every financial year, there is a new pronouncement on tax policies. And then there are also changes, sudden changes of policies now and then, so that we don't know, maybe even the investors cannot predict the business environment in Kenya because of the fluctuating or the signals the government is giving in terms of the policy. Therefore, we propose that the government simplify its policies in terms of registration. It reduces those bureaucratic hurdles they are there. Right now, we have a lot of overlapping mandates from the different government entities. We have KEBS, we have NEMA, we have county governments. So all those areas that are creating a lot of burdens to investors, both in local and foreign investors. And that way, that's why you find in the last 60 years, there's no consistency in terms of policies. Then we want the government to target industries, and just like what you have seen, other economies are doing, targeted tax incentives, subsidies in terms of energies, to give grants open so that the manufacturing sector, they can spur, because I've seen the framework is supposed to spur growth in terms in manufacturing. Therefore, again, they can implement favorable tax if it is every financial year. Then when they are doing financial bill, they should do them in a favorable manner. There should be export incentives so that at least the product are competitive in the global world. And then government should also negotiate for markets. We have seen now in the recent past Kenya losing in markets due to maybe its pronouncement on other policies. The manufacturing sector is the one that is losing in terms of such. Instead of creating new markets, Kenya are losing on those markets. Next. So some of the proposed areas that the government can be keen on as it makes its policies is the area of infrastructure development. Infrastructure, the infrastructure we are talking about railway, roads, airports, and ports. Mostly we have done competitively in terms of the structures. The structures are there. The hardwares are there. We have seen the railway. We have seen the SGR. We have seen the road structures that are there, the bypasses, the road networks. Those hardwares are there. The airports, the JKIA is having those facelift, and even the port. We have the Northern Economic Corridor. We have the RAPSET. So those are the structures. We appreciate the government is doing such, but we still have challenges in that line, so that there are logistical hurdles in terms of transport, so that the government needs to come in and reduce and maybe harmonize the policies in terms of clearance. There are a number of stakeholders involved in that line. we have KRI, we have caves in terms of inspection of raw materials and all that, and the goods, the clearance. So there are still challenges, and in this webinar, I want to gather more hurdles that fellow engineers, and because we are in these sectors, so that we get to build this case and align. As I'm saying, the hardware is there, but we need to improve the software part. Energy infrastructure is also another area. The government has invested a lot in terms of generation. You find that Kenya, we know, generates more than it needs, but conversely, we find that we have a lot of power issues or energy issues in terms of quality and reliability and affordable. The energy, as you have seen from the media recently, Kenya has the most costly in terms of industrial energy that we are using in electric power. As you see, there are sectors. Kenya has 5 subsectors there who are involved. There are those that are involved in generation. That is Kenya. There's transmission, KETRACO there, distribution, Kenya Power, and the government there as a regulator. There are those policies, but how are they? So again, it seems that the government has also focused again on the hardware part, and we have our fellow engineers in these sectors again. So we need again to revolutionize the policies around this so that we lower the cost. Here we are talking, the challenges are there is the increased cost of electricity, and this one is passed to the consumers, both locally and internationally. You find that a product that comes from China or Asia is cheaper in Nairobi than a product that is made in Nairobi. So that's the cost we are talking about, the cost of energy. So what the government needs to do is to provide incentives to industries, create friendly tariffs in terms of what is charging. Again, last year there is this regulation that was passed. It was aimed at easing the burden of the manufacturers. Those manufacturers that have invested in power, they are those with solar, so that when they are not using that power, they can wheel back to Kenya Power. So again, this is an area again that has lagged a lot. There's no implementation framework for this role so that it can benefit the local manufacturers. And there seems to be a conflict between or amongst the 5 subsectors, because the generators, if they are generating electricity that is not being consumed by the manufacturing, then they will lose money. So I think again, those engineers in this sector, they can come up, voice their views on this so that we move forward and agree that we need to lower the burden of the cost of energy. Next. So we move to the next slide. And this has been in the news in the recent past, and you find that Kenya there, if you ignore Singapore and Mexico, Kenya comes there as the highest. Our neighbors here, Rwanda, South Africa, which as we have said is its economy is higher than Kenya. You can see the cost of energy, and even we are being made comparison with Ethiopia. So Kenya is serving those countries in this region, but the cost is so high. So as we saw, the cost of generation is so low, but there are other layers in terms of distribution. There are issues of PP, power purchase agreements that are very costly, that is making Kenya not move forward. So those are the issues that we want the government address so that the cost of energy is low. Next. So as we address the infrastructures and all that, we also need to make sure our workforce are informed and are competitive. Of course, we have seen the industry, how the government structured from the early 2000s. The government has focused on TVET and improving the skilled forces in Kenya. And that's what other economies did, especially where the case study here is Singapore. So what they did, there's a national movement that was created so that it offers grants to individual companies so that they can build, they can upskill. You have seen a lot of engineers being coming out of our universities. This is the focus that they need to be, they are upskilled so that they are available, but the sector itself needs them. However, where is that sector? That's why we need all the framework so that even as they come, there is that need for their skills, and even there is that issue of brain drain. They go to regional and even other growing economies. They can be accepted as qualified staff. So we have seen again there was PCP. This was targeted professionals, growing even the technicians, so that even when there are those bigger projects that the government is focusing on, our local capacity is built so that they can uptake. We have seen a lot of SGRs, all those projects, bigger projects, the local capacity should be built so that the government, as it focus on those infrastructure, it build capacity so that there is human resource development programs from the low level up to the highest levels. So workforce and skill development policies need to be enforced, even as the government now run a different curriculum. It need to refocus and target even the manufacturing sector, so that there are those upcoming technologies, and the education sector can come in, and even the manufacturing sector. Next, finally, as it does, the government, as it focus on that line of workforce and infrastructure, we should also make sure the SMEs, the startups that are coming up, how are we nurturing them so that these sectors, we are saying, let them focus in business so that they can create that what we are calling market. The trainings that we are doing in our university and even our other manufacturing sectors, we need to fund them so that, again, government can fund from the schools, they can train, but still provide capitals so that there's that enabling environment that the government is giving, where the government can innovate, can grant finances for those companies that want to innovate, want to adopt new technology, so that even the productivity can be increased. So they can also promote strategic industries like the semiconductors, the automobiles. There are those companies that have been coming up. They are, you have seen of late, a company was closing shop due to financial hurdles. That company was related to automobiles. So government should come in so that they support those companies so that they create that environment. And once those companies start creating finances and even jobs, then they can come in now so that not to tax before the companies start even making any loan. The government can also guarantee loans. If it does not have that money, it can guarantee international loans, even local loans, so that startups can be enhanced and supported. We have seen, again, my colleagues have talked about the special economic zone clusters. This one need to be enhanced. We have counties have been done, we have zones, but are they working to the maximum? Are they working for the best? So they need to be supported, the free economic zones, so that the local manufacturing can be enhanced. So these policies are good, but they need to be supported or improved. Thank you. Next, I think.
Thank you so much.
That's much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Engineer Paul. So we have seen that the government is trying to put up policies and structures to enhance manufacturing bodies. And according to the So the government has established regulatory bodies according to the PGA Act. So these regulatory bodies are supposed to come and monitor and enforce guidelines to ensure safety, fairness, and efficiency across various sectors. So I'm going to introduce my colleague, Engineer Matope, to take us through the role of regulatory bodies in enhancing the manufacturing sector. Thank you. Engineer Matope.
Thank you, Jora. Good evening, fellow engineers. So in the regulatory sector, yes. So yeah, in the quality infrastructure and trade facilitation, we have quite a number of regulators, but the most important ones, like we have Kenya Bureau of Standards, Kenya National Accreditation Services, we have Anti-Counterfeit Authority, we have Kenya Revenue Authority, we have Kenya Competition, the Competition Authority of Kenya, and many others, including NEMA, the county government, and the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry. But to start with the critical one that directly touch on the success of the manufacturing industry and trade facilitation. Kenya Bureau of Standards, this is the standards body in Kenya, the national standardization body that is tasked with the development of standards, conducting of conformity assessment services, including testing, certification, inspection, and metrology services. So in trade facilitation, the work of KEBS is to ensure goods that are produced meet the quality standards, and even exports meet the quality standards for local and international markets. They also facilitate faster clearance and for compliant goods. KEBS is the representative, the seat of WTO in Kenya. So they also deal with matters to do with technical barriers to trade and ensure that international trade is not hampered. Kenya Revenue Authority is the national taxman responsible for collecting the government revenue on behalf of the Kenya government. So the work of the role of KRA I hope I'm audible. Sorry, I did not confirm that.
Yes, you are.
Thank you, Prof. The role of KRA is to improve custom operations through an effective custom management processes, and even enhance the operation of customs and make sure that the import and export operations are not all move seamlessly. They do promotion of border trade. You have seen efforts like the one-stop border points. You have seen the RECTS, which is the Regional Electronic Cargo Tracking Systems. They also have an integrated custom management system, so that all this is intended to ensure that cross-border trade is effective and is not hampered. Another significant role in trade facilitation is simplification of trade of the taxation process. You understand that manufacturers undergo a lot. What we have seen from our previous discussion was there are a lot of tax issues. So the role of one thing KRA does is simplification of tax process so that you can do your returns easily, you can pay your tax easily. It's an assisted kind of compliance. The Anti-Counterfeit Authority, this is the authority that deals with counterfeit products, hampering of counterfeiting of locally produced products and international internationally imported products. So they ensure fair competitions and market trust. You will understand what will happen if somebody can easily counterfeit your products and provide it even at a cheaper price, having all your brandings and everything. So anti-counterfeit is the one to make sure that does not happen. The Competition Authority of Kenya also promotes, has a significant role in trade facilitation by enhancing competitiveness and market access through fair trade regulation. Kenya National Accreditation Services, this is the accreditation body in Kenya and is responsible for ensuring that our conformity assessment services, including testing, product certification, system certification, all this meet the global recognition such that now if a product is made in Kenya and tested in a laboratory in Kenya, that laboratory, that certificate, that test report can be accepted internationally. Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry. This is the mother ministry for most of these agencies, and it's actually tasked with trade promotion, export promotion, all those. So this is the mother ministry for anything to do with investment, trade, and industry. Yeah, sorry, yeah. So the role of standardization. What does standardization, or why do we need standardization? So as we said, Kenya Bureau of Standards is the body that is tasked with the development of standards. So we say standards generally these are just specifications or requirements or guidelines that are used to that are used as a criteria for products and processes to ensure that these products and processes consistently meet certain international or even local requirements. So normally standards are developed through a consultative and consensus-driven process that is led by Kenya Bureau of Standards as the secretariat in Kenya for the local standards. We also have other standards that apply in Kenya. We have the Kenyan standard as the most basic. We have the East African standards. These are the standards that are developed through the East African Standardization Commission. We have also through the Africa Organization for Standardization, and we have International Standards Organization, ISO. Then we have for electronics and electrical equipment, we have the International Electrotechnical Commission, and we also have the African Electrotechnical Commission for the African standards. So standardization is a great enabler of trade, and is meant to help in improving industrial efficiency, reduce cost of production, and ensure the quality of products that are being produced. These standards play a significant role in facilitating international trade by reducing what we call technical barriers to trade and aligning products. Aligning local products with the international requirements so that now we can export our Kenyan-made products to any other market across the globe. So they enhance cross-border trade. So the role of the significance of some of the significance of standardization can be summarized in the given points in the slide you can see. Number one is to enhance product quality and consistency. So what we said is standards they serve as a guide for any product or service that is being provided. So once we have standards, that means we have a criteria for product quality And so we are able to make sure consistency by offering a structured framework that guides the production process, the design up to the delivery, from the design up to the delivery. So this is now, this provides a clear quality criteria for the raw materials and even the expected characteristics for the finished product. So they also promote consumer and safety and protection. So standards contain what a product should be, what are the requirements for product, both chemical, if it is a chemical product, what should be the chemical requirements, what should be the chemical limits rather, what should be the safety limits in terms of hygiene, if it is an equipment or something that is used for building. This, they also give what are the limits, performance requirements for that product. So they define minimum criteria for the goods and services that must be met, and they cover areas such as product design, material manufacturing processes, and safety features. So if a business adheres to these standards, it can ensure that their products not only meet the safety, are not only functional but are also safe for consumers. So now standards also give clear requirements for labeling of products. So these labeling are required to be accurate and as transparent as possible, so that they allow the consumer to actually decide what I am buying, is what I am buying good for me. Addition to that, standards also contribute to protection of consumers by fostering what's called fair trade practices and ensure accountabilities among business. So this is where enforcement can be taken using standards, because we said standards are a criteria, and enforcement can be done using that criteria. Standards facilitate local and international trade. That happens since standards are actually used to remove what we call technical barriers to trade, and they create that consistency across border. Then cross-border trade is possible. So we have in Kenya, for example, we have where products in Kenya are certified by the Kenya Bureau of Standards with what you call standardization mark of quality. So any product that has that mark, for example, since we have standards and we have the accreditation services for the labs in Kenya, they are acceptable in the East African market, in the region, other regional blocks. So this now enables cross-border trades. So the CAPS also implement what you call mutual recognition agreements. So these recognition agreements enable the country to be able to export its product to other countries without undergoing further testing and certification at the destination country. So we also have WTO, World Trade Organization Agreement on technical barrier to trade, that plays a central role in this by encouraging member countries, including Kenya, to base their national standards on the international norms and ensure that technical regulations, standards, and conformity assessment procedures are non-discriminatory and do not create unnecessary obstacle to trade. So by aligning this, we have the East African Community, or the African Standards Organization, or the ISO, or the IEC. We align with these bodies so that now our standards are also acceptable to international requirements. So standards also encourage innovation and technology transfer. So they play a vital role in facilitating technology transfer by creating a structured environment for development, adoption, and diffusion of new technologies. So by defining these interfaces, protocol and performance benchmarks, standards ensure interoperability between existing and emerging technologies. So that's how they ensure that there's an easy, seamless innovation and technology transfer. So compatibility is also one other important aspect of standards, that a product made with Kenyan standard should be compatible to a product made maybe in Tanzania or any other place across the world. Standards help reduce cost and waste. You will understand that manufacturing process is a cost-intensive process, and the waste generation of a manufacturing process is normally significant. So what standards do is standards provide a platform for standardization of the manufacturing processes by offering clear guidelines for establishing procedures. Standards promote consistency and reduce variability, ultimately minimizing things like rework, defects, material waste, and then they become a powerful tool that help manufacturers streamline their operations. So we have standards like the ISO 9001, which is the framework for is the requirement standard for QMS, the quality management systems. So these standards provide best practices and guide on how to minimize wastage, how to ensure that the design processes actually meet the requirements of the organization, and the product safety and quality are assured. So they also encourage the development of internal SOPs, standard operating procedures, and internal company standards that enhance operational efficiency rather, and ensuring that tasks are performed consistently and correctly over time. So also standards encourage further optimization through risk-based approach. So risk management is very integral in any quality management system. So manufacturers, by adopting these standards, can ensure that their products are actually of the right quality by taking proactive initiatives. So the standardization environment in Kenya, as we have said, the organization that's tasked with the development of standards in Kenya is the Kenya Bureau of Standards, that is established through the Standards Act, Cap 496 of the laws of Kenya. In Kenya now we have an upwards of about 11,000 standards, both local and adopted standards and regional standards. So these standards are maintained by Kenya Bureau of Standards. We have Kenyan standards, as we said, ISO standards, East African standards. So all those are maintained. The adopted standards and the local standards are maintained by KEBS. Also, there are changes to the law that I just want to mention a bit before I move to the next. So we say that the Kenya Bureau of Standards is established by Standards Act Cap 496 of the laws of Kenya. However, in December 2024, the government has passed new laws called the Business Laws Amendment Act 2024, and this act had made sweeping changes in the standardization environment in the country. Especially, you have laws that were affected include the CAP 496, the Standardization Act, CAP 496A, the Accreditation Act. So these two acts are very critical in the manufacturing industry. So the changes include things like the responsibility for quality, for example, now shift to the manufacturers, where the manufacturer is required to ensure that the product is of the right quality and is certified at any given time. We also have changes where, like our laboratory service, we talked of conformity assessment services. All conformity assessment services must be accredited by KENAS or even an international accreditation service, and their result must be of the right quality. So this law has made changes like requiring manufacturers to accurately and transparently label their products by declaring the ingredients, the type of the product in a way that the local manufacturer can understand. So we have different types of standards. We have what we call management system standards. Management system standards provide organizations with a structured framework for establishment, implementation, monitoring, and continuous improvement of policies, processes, procedures in their operations by offering systematic approach to achieving objectives such as quality assurance, environmental stewardship, operational health, food safety, and information security. So these standards include ISO 9001 2015, that's the quality management system standard. We have ISO 14,000 standards. These deal with environmental management system. We have 27,000 standard family of standards that deal with information security management. We have 22,000 dealing with food safety. We also have standards that are used to accredit conformity assessment. These are the 17,000 group of standards, including 17,065, that's for product certification, 17,020 for system certification. We have 025 for testing and calibration services. So we also have sector-specific codes. These are codes that are used to guide specific sectors. Like we have the food safety code. We have standards like ISO 4254 that is used for safety, general requirements for agricultural machinery safety. We have code of practice for the cotton industry, which is KS 2857. So these standards are so many, and we have like there are sectors that require specific codes of practices. So we have this kind of standards guiding those sectors. So these standards, the ISO standards are available on the KEBS website and can be purchased. One thing you will notice, once ISO standard is available on the ISO website, if you say you will buy as a Kenyan, it may cost you up to 50, 60, 30, 40,000. But then what KEBS does is it adopts those standards for local consumption, so that when KEBS adopts an ISO standard, because KEBS is an ISO member, that standard can be available with as low as 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 shillings, depending on the size of the document that you are purchasing. So we also have product standards. Product standards are the standards that actually give the requirements for specific products. So these products are categorized into different categories. We have food and agriculture. We have civil engineering, chemical, electrotechnical. We have mechanical. We have textile and leather. So these standards actually speak to the requirements of that product in terms of design, manufacture, assembly, safety, interoperability, conformity to inspection and testing, all those. If it is machinery, we'll be talking of something like engineering equipment, machinery and associated products. So what are the performance requirements for those products? So these kind of standards give those specifications. So these standards are available on the KEBS website. KEBS has what's called a web store, where you can actually log in and buy any standard that is Kenyan, that's either local or adopted or harmonized, and you can purchase these standards from that website. So
Engineer
we say
Mathope, maybe you could, sorry for cutting you short, maybe you could summarize because of time so that we save time for question and answers.
Okay, I'll do quickly. So we said stakeholders, standardization is a collaborative effort, and different stakeholders have different rights. So KEBS is the standards body and is the Secretariat for Standards Development. We have manufacturing industries. Manufacturers and industry, they play a part of the industry, the development of standards role. We have consumer groups, regulators and other government agencies. We have industrial and associations that provide technical expertise. All these sit in the technical committees for development of standards. The role of industry players in technology and innovation and market development. So industry players play a significant role in modernization of production processes. By adopting technology, the latest technology. We also have research and development that's undertaken by industry players. So these are efforts that are significant in helping the growth of the industry. They also do market development. Different players do export promotion. They also develop sector-specific quality standards within different sectors. Also, in encouraging sustainability, the industry players are very conscious about environmental sustainability by adopting sustainable practices. They undertake social responsibilities, and also there's collaborative effort between government and industry players. This is through public-private partnerships that play a crucial role in facilitating technologies transfer, skills development, human capital support. You will see this happening through internships, CSR activities, all those. Industry association and advocacy. So in the industry, we have associations like Kenya Association of Manufacturers, we have Federation of Employers. All these, they play a significant role in the manufacturing industry and ensuring the growth of the industry. They provide platform for business to collaborate on common issues and share knowledge. They provide policy advocacy. You have seen what has happened in the Finance Bill 2025 and even 2024 and 2023, where the industry associations were very active in advocating for their members and ensuring that the tax measures are not punitive. Business facilitation, they support members to easily comply with regulatory services through creation of awareness and even actual support. Information and training, they also provide information and training. They also provide you remove my slide. They also provide support to their members. So so that is the end of my presentation.
I think
Jora,
Jora can share the slide. You have seen the person who was sharing has lost power, so Jora can share.
Okay. All right.
Just a moment.
Just give me like a minute to.
So maybe I can just continue speaking.
Yes.
Yes. So industry associations, we were saying they provide network and linkages for their members. This would be seen, for example, what Kenya Association of Manufacturers does. They play advocacy role, standard setting and compliance. They play capacity building roles. They also have market access and expansion role. They promote sustainable practices. So industry associations are also, they also do what's called data collection and analysis by actually engaging their members and collecting information regarding their welfare, the performance of the industry. Now, like the manufacturing industry, if you want to get insight into the manufacturing industry, you will actually, your biggest source of information will be Kenya Association of Manufacturers, by fact that they play a significant role in that industry. So they enhance industry reputation. They promote ethical practices and corporate social responsibility among members to build trust. So that is the role of industry associations and advocacy groups. Madam Jora and Kendi, I think I'm through with my part. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Engineer Mahmoud Matope. So we'll go straight to see what is the future prospects of the manufacturing sector in Kenya, and we will be taken through this by Engineer Sang.
Okay, thank you, Kendi. You can just move on. So I hope I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
You are.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the future prospects for manufacturing are anchored on some very key areas. And the first being innovation and technology. Given the rapid changes that are happening around the world and with technology, we realize that for Kenya to become very competitive in manufacturing, adoption of various innovations and technology is very key to ensuring we have very productive and sustainable and competitive industries in the manufacturing sector. And as such, these digital solutions ensure that we are able to improve efficiency and productivity. And these are the key hallmarks of ensuring that we are very competitive as a country. And so, when we talk about sustainability in manufacturing, we need to know where the global trends in manufacturing are globally. We all know China has been known as the manufacturing center of the world. And what has made them that competitive globally? Now, one of the key emphases and the biggest shifts in the global trade is the aspect of sustainability, whereby we're focusing, manufacturing sector is focusing on environmental friendly practices. And this shift towards sustainable manufacturing is not only to meet international standards, but also to appeal towards the consciousness of the consumer base. We are all aware about the aspects of sustainable development. This is one of the key treaties that have been signed by all signatories to UN. And one of the key areas when we talk about sustainable development cuts across all industries, including manufacturing. And that is why it's so important that there's a deliberate shift. And you'd note and see in the markets aspects of green manufacturing, manufacturing using green energy, simply to ensure that we have a sustainable world where we talk about concepts of use and reuse, of recycling, as one of the key aspects that promote sustainability in manufacturing. Now, this global trend now ensures that products and services are made in such a manner that it appeals to the new global market. Further, further to this, the aspect of investment opportunities, we need to note that there's a clear policy in Kenya concerning manufacturing under the BETA. The current bottom-up transformation agenda talks about that specific policy talks about manufacturing, and it spans across all sectors of the economy to ensure that we're able to attract industries in all sectors for both domestic and international investors looking to capitalize. And given that we have an economic framework such as what we are currently having as a country, this then makes it very important as one of the future things to ensure that we are continuously aligning our development goals and policies towards um, in the international market and grow manufacturing as a key aspect of economic growth. You can move to the next. Now, what is the role of manufacturing in the economic transformation in Kenya? Now, we are looking at manufacturing sector playing a very, very crucial role. And what we've discussed from policy, from the issues of standards, from the issue of sector players earlier on, one of the key issues that we are now trying to focus on is that manufacturing plays a very crucial role in enhancing local production and increasing employment opportunities. Why? Because this has a direct impact on our GDP. And if, as we improve our gross domestic products, this ensures we have sustainable growth as a country. And so manufacturing is so crucial in that aspect, not only in productivity, but employment. Uh, Manufacturing companies and large scale manufacturing provides very large opportunities for employment. And that is why key focus by government in this area is very key to ensure that we have economic transformation. Now, further to this, we now look at the current Vision 2030, whereby there's a lot of emphasis on the sector for generating substantial opportunities for regional and global exports. And this focus is expected to diversify Kenya's economic base and reduce dependency on limited range of goods. Now, this aspect about export affects what we call the balance of trade. And their key agendas, apart from Vision 2030, we have Africa Agenda 2063, We have the East Africa Community Vision 2050. All these are talking about regional integration and increasing the market size. The question is, once we are able to have such a large market, not only within Kenya, Africa, and East Africa, we are able then to ensure that we have opportunities for economic development through export, because we are able to reduce one, our balance of trade, two, increase our opportunities for export and earn in foreign currency. Further to that, uh, the role of economic transformation through manufacturing, we realize that all industries that are in Kenya need to align to this Kenya Vision 2030, because this provides a long-term strategy for the country towards improving the lives of Kenyans. And that is why emphasis on manufacturing is so key in all sectors. Value addition ensures that we are able then to get more for what we produce rather than being a net uh, exporter of raw produce. We can move to the next slide. Now, what are the policy frameworks for development? Now, the key areas and some of the strategic policy initiatives, these are strategic initiatives aimed to enhance productivity and competitiveness within the sector. And these are designed primarily to facilitate investment. And that is why we find that key focus is on in investment in infrastructure. We've seen what has recently been signed with regard to the standard gauge rail, with regard to the expansion of our roads. Why? This ensures transportation, access to markets, infrastructure development, not only on transport, but it comes to aspects of energy, cost of energy, which we mentioned earlier, as part of key policies focus to ensure that we are having competitively produced goods, but also having transportation network to ensure access to markets. But above all, we need to focus on issues of promotion of innovation to ensure that we can access and thrive in the global market. We realize that if we do not promote key innovations, as a country, we will lag behind in terms of producing new products and services for not only the local but export market. A key focus on policy is building on investment on human capital. And why do we say this? The key factor in terms of skill and education and having an educated workforce ensures that we have knowledgeable and skilled labor workforce that can support the sector's growth. Why is this so important? As you realize, as mentioned earlier, with digital technology in place, robotics, AI, all these are currently the trends on what we are seeing across all sectors. The question is, how skilled are we to have advanced technologies and manage them and operate them and maintain and operate the same? That is a big question. Lack of skilled labor would mean that those countries that are able to have a highly skilled workforce have remote manufacturing simply because they've improved their skills, both and technology. It means a clear policy focus on development of human capital and technology to be able to be competitive at a global scale. Further to this is sustainability and environmental conditions, which, as mentioned, in terms of Kenya, having a key focus anchoring all this is ensuring that we have a sustainable way of developing our country. And of course, it sparks a lot of debate across the globe when it comes to what sort of energy, clean energy, coal, use of nuclear, use of hydros, use of different forms of energy. Just the bottom line is, are we able to manufacture with a sustainable mindset? And that is what the current market will demand. The current market demands not only the source of the products that are being manufactured, but how they were manufactured, whether the environment was impacted in the process of it being manufactured. And that is why you find new concepts of traceability. If you realize, for example, in our export market to Europe for some of our agro produce, you'd find that they always insist marks of traceability. Why? Because this is a global shift in terms of mindset of the current market. And that is why we cannot remain ignorant, produce simply in the traditional ways, but focusing not only on technology, investment in capital, human capital, but environmental considerations in terms of sustainable manufacturing. Next. And so, how then do we leverage on all this? To be able then, as a key focus as a country, we need to focus on global integration and in partnerships. Now, why is this so important? In a nutshell, the globalization where the whole world is seen as a single market. But how do you access these markets? We've seen different policies by countries like as of recent, like American, creating, interests of saying, make America great again. However, the fallback that has and the backlash that has brought all the policies that have been currently being promoted has led to quite a number of has led to a lot of discussions globally. And that is why we'd wish then at this point to say it's important as a country for us not to take for granted what is happening globally. And that is why regional cooperation is very important. Being part of trade blocs, East African community, being part of the Africa Union, being part of all these global trade and local and Africa and COMESA, so to speak, very important because we are able to build our market. Because unfortunately, as we have seen the current trends, global markets, some like say the US, are closing themselves through in providing policies that prevent exporters to their markets. And so for us, we need to rethink and prioritize how we can build our local African market to make Africa great. So to this is very important because as we've seen current trends in terms of global market access, we need to ensure that as we work on our manufacturing policies, they are all aligned to international standards and practices so as to not only attract both domestic and foreign investment, but expand our foreign markets. Now, as government focuses on building social infrastructure, other industries then need to come up. But what framework would be very useful? And this is why private-public partnerships is very key to be able to ensure that working with government and private enterprises are key to ensuring some of the key infrastructure developments that are required to ensure manufacturing takes off would work under this particular framework. Yes. So as we head to the conclusion, next, we'll have our next presenter, Chair.
Thank you so much, Engineer Sang. So we'll finally invite Professor Alex Mombo to take us through the conclusion and way forward.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Joanne. And in concluding, ladies and gentlemen, maybe let me see if I can move these slides. Somebody please assist me to control the slides. Yes. I think it's been very clearly mentioned that the policies that have been implemented or are envisaged for implementation in Kenya are expected to have a significant implication on the growth of the manufacturing sector. And this is more so because they will promote local industries and enhance production capacities, such that now there is a creation of a favorable environment for business expansion and innovation. So in a nutshell, I think we need to look to understand the overall economic landscape because this has a direct impact on the manufacturing sector. And the interplay between government policies, investment in infrastructure, and also human capital development. These are what will shape the future economic trajectory. Definitely, there are challenges ahead. I think it is important to understand that there is a global competition around. There are supply chain disruptions, and we've seen this, playing a very significant role of late. There is then the need for technological advancement, which we have actually insisted that the government must help in bringing about this kind of development. So if we address this issue, then we will be seeing what Engineer Sang has, drummed on, the sustainable growth. And then, of course, looking at the future, we need to foster innovation, improve regulatory frameworks, and enhance access to finance for manufacturers, as was alluded earlier. And this approach, of course, will enable, the players to navigate the complexities of, the global market. Next slide. Yeah, so you find that there is a need for a concerted effort from both the government and regulatory bodies, including industry, if manufacturing is to grow. And then, of course, there is that focus to implement strategic policies, investment in key infrastructure, so that we are able at least to match technology infrastructure to our manufacturing capacity. And alongside that, we must also promote skills development and, above all, foster innovation, so that we're able to unlock the full potential of the manufacturing sector. And I think looking at it, we are not going to escape collaboration. We are not going to escape partnerships, because these are key in achieving sustainable growth and making Kenya a competitive manufacturing hub within the region. Next slide, please. So strategic recommendations, as has been outlined earlier on, we need to enhance local production, so that, the government, in doing this, can create, incentives for local production. For example, reducing tariffs on raw materials and providing subsidies for small as well as medium enterprises. And then there is investment in technology. We look at advanced manufacturing technologies. And this is what actually is making China now tick. And there's no way we can, remain manual and expect to compete internationally. There is the element of skills development, so that programs that are tailored to manufacturing will ensure that the workforce is equipped. And then strengthening supply chains, as we have seen, where we now develop these supply chains, whether of raw materials, even the finished goods and products, so that can now spur growth. And this also will be backed by the policies that will focus on the sourcing of, raw materials locally, creating partnerships between manufacturers and suppliers, and so on and so forth. Next slide, please. Yeah, so that we can then look at maybe an implementation or rather monitoring and evaluation framework moving on, where we, first and foremost, establish key performance indicators, so that we are able to monitor the impact of manufacturing. We need also to have a regular stakeholder engagement, because this, of course, will lead to more informed decision making. Then there is the impact assessment studies, which we need also to regularly carry out. And this will help, of course, gauge the effectiveness of policies and initiatives in the manufacturing sector. And lastly, the feedback mechanisms must be put in place so that the business is also encouraged towards a continuous improvement and, of course, adaptation of new technologies as they come along. Yes. And so looking at the long-term, kindly the next slide. Looking at the long-term vision, we are looking at embracing sustainable practices, focusing on regional integration, innovation ecosystem development, where we build and develop systems that support startups and established businesses alike, and then also focusing on global competitiveness, establishing global competitiveness strategies, so that we are able to improve our competitive standing. And this, of course, will now bring in what Engineer Mathope talked about: branding, quality assurance, as well as participation in international trade fairs. And I think with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think we come to the end of this presentation. And I would like to thank each and every one of you for having really stayed on and listened to us. Karibuni sana for the question and answer session.
Thank you, Prof, for that. I will invite Engineer Mathope to take over the question and answer session.
Thank you, Jora. Thank you, Prof, for that insightful insight you have given us. So, participants, fellow engineers, we will be taking questions. We'll be taking oral questions. You can raise your hand. Also, you can type in the chat any question you have, any comment you have. So there's one question by Mwaniki David that was asking, what is the status of KIPE initiative across counties? So I will direct this to the chair to open for us with the status for KIPE, and then now as we wait for other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Mathope. I think when you talk about KIPEs, these are county aggregation industrial parks, and actually they are targeted to be developed in every county. Now, the time this initiative was starting around 2022, 23 there, it initially focused on, piloting on five locations. But this was later expanded because there was growing interest from a lot of counties. And the focus basically is on storage, value addition of locally produced goods, particularly agricultural items. Now, between the county and the national government, there was a target actually to invest close to 1 billion shillings for each KIPE. But honestly, in my opinion, this is not enough, because we participated at one point in doing some of those designs, and we were clearly sure that the 1 billion per KIPE was not going to be enough. However, counties have gone ahead to develop, and to some extent, like we heard from the CS investment the other day, that most of the KIPEs now are at 80% development. But the extent to which they have developed varies from location to location. And maybe for certain, we would perhaps maybe carry out maybe a survey to establish exactly how far they have gone. But they are designed such that now the government puts up the rudimentary infrastructure, creates space on the sideline for anybody else wishing to develop special infrastructure. And I think until and unless the government now comes in and establishes that kind of infrastructure, it will be difficult then to invite more investors into this space. But I think the prospects are good. What I find are the challenges, and these are what actually even kind of sounded a death knell on the Kenya Industrial Transformation Program of 2015. What I find as the key challenges are the high cost of energy and logistics, policy and regulatory bottlenecks, infrastructure gaps, as we have seen. Then there is a very weak value chain linkage. And of course, there is limited technology adoption, particularly by SMEs. And this is where now we engineers must come in and try to assist the government to see the light. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Professor. There was a question that was being engaged by Engineer Paul on the chat. However, I'll still direct this question to Engineer Paul. The question by Robert Nyongesa. What becomes of Buy Kenya, Build Kenya? What had an initiative of growing local content in the automotive sector? This has shrunk instead as we train manpower for other economies. So Engineer Paul, please take that question.
Sorry, come again. I think. Sorry, come again on that.
Paul Nyongesa is asking about what happened to the Build Kenya, Buy Kenya initiative, where we were targeting growing local content, especially in the automotive sector. And he has noted that this has shrunk instead while we are still training manpower for other economies. So maybe you can take, what is your opinion on that?
Thank you. I was engaging Engineer Nyongesa on that line that we have forgotten the local market and the economies we are quoting as developed or developing started from the same level we are, maybe of goods that are not of international standards. And my thought was that even the local standard we have and maybe what we have from foreigners as maybe their standard is competing with even the raw standard that we have, so that that's an issue that we can focus on, creating the market for the local product for the standard that are there, so that we don't allow influx of those goods come and compete with whatever you have, even if it is for local. As we develop the standard for those goods, let it be consumed locally and build the standard for the export. I think that was my view on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer. So we have two hands. I will allow people questions to be asked directly by Kitich Daniel. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I really appreciate the report. My question about Kenya's enhancing manufacturing is about the zoning. How can that document be in a way that for the zones which the government has established the strategic location be in such a way that you can evaluate so far, because now this is also part of Vision 2030. We can evaluate, let's say in Vika, we can see there are some industries, there are some manufacturing industries, but when you see there is no infrastructure, including water or roads, yet the same government is still improving the most improved areas and leading the other zones, which also we need to create, like the one in Foy, the base titanium, it needs to be improved. The roads are not there, the water facility. So how can that be done in a way we create that there's a zone and we evaluate which are the amenities which are required to be improved.
Okay, thank you, Daniel. I think that will be taken by Engineer Sang. Engineer, are you still with us? A colleague is asking about zoning of how the government is improving different zones, industrial zones unequally, and how that can be evaluated and even improved. So, Prof, maybe you can take that.
Yeah, maybe I could, and thank you, Daniel, for that question. I think the government, in its planning, has come up with two types of zoning. That is the special economic zones and the export processing zones, where export processing zones directly or rather primarily focus on manufacture of products for direct export. And you hardly get any of those products actually selling within the country. And there, I think the manufacturers are encouraged to develop infrastructure. And anybody also who is capable of building some road networks or supply water, they are also encouraged to invest in that. Then the special economic zones, and a very good example that we can give is the Dongo Kundu. They have been earmarked as areas of development, specifically to help local manufacturers, to set up businesses. But I think we have also seen a lot of influx of, foreign companies coming to occupy space in the special economic zones. Now, these ones are a little bit relaxed in terms of their policies, where of what is produced within the special economic zone, some percentage actually can be sold within the country, and then the larger percentage again is exported out. Now, one of the challenges that I think the government has had in this, besides just setting up the space, I think they have kind of largely relied on the private sector to come and develop the infrastructure. And that is, I think, what I would now say is a drawback or the Achilles heels in terms of the progress that we have seen in the development of these special economic zones. Another very good example that you can give is the hides and skins. There is an area just around at River that was earmarked for the development of the leather industry, and it has never taken off. Then there is another one in Samburu towards Mombasa, which has also never taken off. And I think that total reliance on the private sector to come and develop all kinds of infrastructure is what perhaps I would call the undoing of this. And probably the government needs to think about focused investment where the rudimentary infrastructure is established before you even invite the investors to come in and develop some of the, you would call it, the physical infrastructure like the buildings, and even bringing in the machines and any other equipment that would be required for the various processes. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof. The second question would come from Humphrey Adenya. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, good evening, guys. For me, my question is, in Kenya, do we really have the goodwill? You know, the government does it really have the goodwill of inviting investors? The reason I'm asking that question is, even just in Kenya, when somebody has an innovation, you find sometimes even in the local news, what frustrates that person's progress is the bureaucracy of approvals and unending procedures that you find that the person is even stifled, that they cannot even move forward. And on the same question, the reason I'm asking, is there really the goodwill? I was just trying to check here the government expenditure, the current financial year, and the results show that the total ministerial expenditures and state departments, the ministries and the state departments, their expenditures is 2.23 trillion, representing 58% of the total budget. And in this 2.23 trillion, the expenditure is categorized as recurrent expenditure 1.59 trillion, that is 41.3%. But development is 641 billion. You see, recurrent expenditure 1.59 trillion. Development 641 billion, meaning development is like a third of the recurrent expenditure. When somebody is budgeting, for the government, are we really based on, how to develop areas that these ministries fall under? Because it seems like the big piece of the cake is being taken by the recurrent expenditure. And then on the same question, if you try to look at even the special economic zone, you find that there is a war between the county government and the national government. There is no agreement at all. Like just in the recent, even just Tatu City down here to Europe, you realize that initially when the government announced the establishment of Tatu City, it was an industrial hub. And then all of a sudden, it's in the news that it's actually a private development. Then you ask, the question comes, when a company wants to come and operate from Tatu City, it ends up that they have to now go and negotiate with this private developer, meaning the government is actually dark on that situation. So is there really goodwill that the government, when even if you check even in the PPPs, that the government is getting in? Just recently, you hear the news that it's the SGR again from Nairobi to Kisumu. And then you find that even the documents of PPPs cannot even be disclosed. Meaning even the public is being barred from getting to know what it's going to cost the public itself, the national treasury. So is there really goodwill, the openness, even when an investor wants to come in? Is there really the goodwill? And the investor can say, okay, if I enter into an agreement with this government, nothing will change. I will not be shortchanged. Is the lack of goodwill even scaring away investors? That even some companies are relocating from Kenya, not to Egypt, and even to the neighborhood countries. If you look at Kenya, as I finish, Kenya is at a very strategic position. There is war in Congo, there is war in South Sudan, there is war in Sudan itself, there is war in Central African Republic. Those are our neighbors. And then you find Kenya is strategically located with the port itself that can be used, to export whatever you are producing here. That's just my short input and my question also. Is there really the goodwill in the government institution? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Humphrey. If I summarize your question, you're asking whether there's a goodwill from the government looking at the expenditure, especially on capital and the recurrent expenditure, and even the kind of engagement, the kind of things that the government does, especially when the responsibility of these projects when transferred to transparency, when transferred to private investors. So I would ask Engineer Paul to answer that question quickly as we look for other questions in the chat. Thank you. Engineer Paul. Jora, you can help. Prof. So if you would allow me,
Thank you. I don't know whether it's a connectivity challenge between Engineer Paul, Jora, and
Jora is now able to speak.
Yeah. Let me say this. I think, Humphrey, you really hit the nail on the head. And the question you've asked, whether there is goodwill, is very pertinent. I think just the other day, we saw in the news that the president actually secured some partnerships that would bring in close to 107 trillion, is it billion, into the country to assist in the establishment of certain industries. And the key one there was the development of an alloy producing or processing plant in Baringo. Now, I think in terms of maybe the presidential push towards enhancing the manufacturing sector, there is a very clear indication that the president is very focused on enhancing this. Probably it is the foot soldiers who are letting him down. For example, I think to have come to a point whereby a ministry is spending 1.5 trillion on recurrent expenses, while just reserving a mere 6.1 billion on development, then that is an indicator that then perhaps our priorities have been kind of switched the other way around. And perhaps this can only be treated if we sit down. For example, when we come up and develop these policies, the ministry is developing this policy and they are saying we are going to invest in A, B, C, D. I think there should be, direct questions from, stakeholders, and engineers play a part here. And ask these ministries, exactly how much are you going to invest towards this particular initiative? So that the ministry commits from the very beginning that this is the match. And then they also have a roadmap on how they are going to reduce on the recurrent budgets, because at the rate we are moving, definitely with this kind of recurrent budgets, there is no way we will make this country progress. And therefore, your question is very, very valid. Your fears are very valid. The taxation tariffs must be looked into. We need to look at bringing the county government together, the county government and the national government together, so that we plan together. And I think engineers are the bridge in this. And I hope we will be able to create a forum in future whereby some of these things can actually be thrashed out. And this current IEK, IEK regime is working towards creating this kind of a platform whereby now we can begin engaging the concerned ministries on some of these issues that are really pertinent. And I hope we will make headway in this particular initiative. The other thing probably that I would also maybe encourage us is, as engineers, we need also to seek elective positions so that we can also influence, policy at that level. Yeah. So these perhaps are my views on this. But thank you, Engineer Humphrey, for raising this.
Thank you, Prof.
Prof,
Yes.
maybe to also add to what Chair has talked about, I'm trying to truly understand and also feel the participants who severally asking the question, is there goodwill? Is there goodwill? Because goodwill can be felt even without any action, or goodwill can be felt through a certain action. The current situation in Kenya, the current situation in Kenya, as we all understand it, is there is a lot of policies that seek into enhancing the manufacturing sector. We are also all quite aware of the Vision 2030, Kenya Vision 2030, and all the good things that it bears as a document. And all of it is waiting for actioning. So in the roadmap to actioning all those good things that are entailed there, then we are bound to see the political environment, see the legislative environment. He has also mentioned about even doing a startup. There are so many approvals that are required, and in a way speak to pulling you behind, not to catapult you into that innovation or that employment creation opportunity that you're about to start up. So in general, to say there, at a global level, at an aerial view, there is goodwill. We can see that goodwill through the policies. We can see that goodwill through even the international engagement that has been mentioned by Chair about the president engaging out there to bring some good results to the country. We also see Kenya being ambitious in trying to align with the global trends such as the global sustainability goals that are marked for all countries, as has been mentioned. And therefore, some of the goodwill may not be coming from within. It's a push externally to match to international standards. And therefore, the concerns are valid. And in addition to what the chair has mentioned, it is upon us now to continually speak out. Some of those issues cannot be corrected immediately. There could be sabotage in trying to implement some of these policies, but it is the continuous advocacy on issues manufacturing that will help the manufacturing sector by force if there is no goodwill to achieve that extra step that is required. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Veronica, for that input. Please don't mute yet. I have two questions here that I will want Engineer Veronica to take up. The first one is from Engineer Eric Murimi. He's saying that he has not seen the issues of corruption in our report. Does that mean that corruption is no longer an issue? And the second one you would want to answer with that one is, are we putting too much emphasis on creating an internationally competitive industry to the detriment of MSMEs that will primarily serve local markets? Stephen Onyango is further giving an example of peanut butter, that are we focused on creating large factories to compete internationally to the detriment of smaller manufacturers that may supply the local kiosk? And if it is a standard problem that is creating this barrier of entry, is there maybe a lower set of standards that will allow the growth of smaller players? So maybe you can answer the first part of supporting international competitive industry at the detriment of MSMEs and the issue of anti-corruption.
Okay, simply, I would like to really go fast at it. For sure, we are not prioritizing international competition against the local competitor. By all means, through the Buy Kenya, Build Kenya initiative and other policies that have come in place, they have been empowering or advocating for the domestic person to take advantage of the locally produced items. The challenges, as has been mentioned by my colleagues earlier, is that you could be finding an item that has been produced here. It even meets the standards that through the KEBS, but the cost of producing that item, or even purely just value addition to an available raw material, the costs attached to it go higher compared to the cost of an item that has been imported. And that speaks to our taxation systems and the elements that go into adding costs for a manufacturer to get a cut on what they have produced. So for sure, we are not only advocating for big manufacturers to do big things out there. We are also advocating for every manufacturer who is doing something to add value and build this economy by even creating employment, adding revenue streams into the economy. That is sure a welcome idea. And then on the issue of corruption, indeed, we have not pronounced it as corruption. Probably we should be able to do that and modify some of our statements just for participants to feel comfortable. But for example, when I was looking at the economic recovery for wealth creation, for wealth and employment creation, some of the challenges that were faced in the 1980s and the 1990s, we know it commonly as the Nyayo era, was the weak institutions of governance that were there that were unable to fight corruption and therefore contributed a lot to the failed economic performance. That did not stop them, even with the emerging policies that aimed to improve the economy. Even with the current strategy that we are running with, the Kenya Vision 2030, we can sure pinpoint areas where issues have not been conclusively be dealt with or no longer or cannot meet the standards expected because of corruption. Again, with the country constantly borrowing funds and some of those reforms that are required by Kenya, required for Kenya to qualify for external funding, are issues to do with taxation. So once Kenya is unable to prudently appropriate the funds it has by wastefully or in other words being corrupt and mismanaging public funds, and that either taking too long to find out the culprits and recover the lost assets, then that means more borrowing is required to run an economy, and for that to happen, more taxation goes into even the manufacturers and even the cost of some of the commodities that the local consumer will buy. So at the end of it, you find the local consumer will definitely run for something that is cheaper because, again, the purchasing power is not that high. And that cheap commodity is not what has been produced in Kenya. So indeed, corruption is a menace, and we need it tackled. And we cannot sit comfortably and say that there is no longer corruption in Kenya. It continues to ail the manufacturing sector and the economy at large, and therefore needs a head-on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Engineer, for that answer. I think it was very clear that corruption is always an issue in any industry and any economy, and that's why even we have an international standard called the anti-bribery management system that actually establishes specific controls for managing corruption issues and bribery issues, so that In as much as you cannot say you will eliminate corruption, the target is to minimize as much as possible. Thank you, Engineer, for that. We have a comment from Engineer James Kitek saying that to encourage manufacturing in the country, we need to reduce power cost. We have harmonized regulations, predictable fiscal policies. We are advantaged in the bulk power from geothermal, which is green and can give the manufacturer the advantage in the sustainability arena. Yeah, thank you, Engineer. I think that is a very positive comment. And indeed, it's true that we have the biggest challenge in the manufacturing industry, and you would even see from the answer given by Engineer Veronica, and even from the presentation, that the cost of power is a challenge, and even the unstable or unpredictable tax policy, the taxation environment. So regulations also, we have it was spoken to that we have so many agencies that are doing either overlapping mandates or even over regulations, like where we'll have several agencies regulating the same thing. These are things that can be handled through advocacy. Some of the issues we mentioned was advocacy and manufacturer groups that can actually advocate for simplification of regulation environment and establishment of a predictable fiscal policy. Thank you very much for that comment. We have two questions from Engineer Nicholas Enoch, and I would want Professor to answer this. What happened to Numerical Machining Complex Agency? I remember it produced 2 Nyayo cars, which unfortunately failed to start during the launch. The other question is the death toll on the road due to involving many buses and long distance buses during accidents that crash are attributed to poor and unsafe construction of bodies. What action was taken to address this matter and any impact? Another related question, our long distance buses are constructed from prime movers with very high performance, way above the requirement for passenger transport. Any word on this? Thank you, Prof. Maybe if you can.
Yeah, thank you, Nicholas, for that question. I think looking at it, NMC, actually, the idea of coming up with NMC was very, very grand. And I would say the Moi regime really thought this through. When NMC was established, it was actually a bone. Perhaps what I would say let down this whole agency was a lack of vision, clear vision on what needed to be done. Because when they went on to produce the Nyayo cars, they thought probably they needed to manufacture every nut and bolt, including the engine and so on and so forth, such that at the end of the day, they thought probably they could have all that capacity concentrated within NMC. And that was actually what did in NMC. So moving on, you find that the complex has actually deteriorated in terms of infrastructure. There has not been any significant improvement on the machines that were brought in. That time, they were the numerically controlled machines were the in thing. But now we do have more complex machines in industry. Yes, the computer controlled machines. And if you go to NMC now, there are very few such. And in fact, I think it's only one 5-axis station that is currently there. So the rate at which now the replenishment of the infrastructure has progressed over time is also another perhaps contributor to the poor performance. And unless and until, of course, we now, reflect on what needs to be done, then we shall not see much coming out of NMC. However, I think I've heard that recently there has been this push to shift it from Ministry of Trade to defense, and I believe probably if that is done, then maybe we will begin to see a lot of things coming out of that. Now, on the death tolls involving minibuses, I think you're well aware that even KEBS has developed now a standard on the quality of the bodies that need to be developed and fitted on these kind of vehicles. And I think just the other day there was that push by IEK even to kind of establish why this is happening, to the extent that they were invited by this industry in Thika to even go see for themselves what is happening and how the industry is kind of now overcoming this challenge. And I think from the standard, if the standards are followed clearly and to the point, I believe we should be able to reduce on the death tolls. And I think as individuals, also users of these vehicles, when we get into a vehicle and we only put on a safety belt when confronted by the police, then I think that is a practice that we need to really maybe guard against, so that self-consciousness always guides us to understand that when you're in a vehicle, you must have your safety belt on. I think Mahmoud, you have indicated one of the standards or specifications, that is the KES 372 of 2019. That talks about passenger vehicle body construction. So this is one of the standards, and I think there are many more. So actually, the industry is required actually to adhere to these standards. Thank you, Mohammed.
Thank you, Prof. I think we are running 30 minutes past the planned time. So I will read two comments by two colleagues and then take one question. But all other questions will be taken by the Secretariat and the answers will be provided. So the first comment is by Engineer James Kiptek. The government is saying the government should encourage value addition of minerals instead of exporting them as raw materials. I think that is one positive comment, that actually we need to, not just the minerals, all kind of products, if we process them locally, they will create more value than exporting them as export. Even maize, even although we don't export maize, even like tea, for example, if you process tea to its final product and you could make maybe drinkable tea, things like that, they will be more value to the country than exporting them in a raw or a semi-finished product. Engineer Estes Ochola is saying one hindrance of manufacturing in Kenya is reliable transport for goods and labor. How is the government working on elevating this? I think we have seen activities by government, especially things like recognition of prior learning, investment in TVET, where the government actually deliberately taking actions to skill persons to serve in the different kind of industries. So yeah, the other question, now the question I would want to post is development expenditure of our country too really cognizant of the manufacturing industry, or is it too focused on enabling infrastructure? I say this considering the direct investment that Chinese government policy providers to its industries, the EV industry being one example. Engineer Paul, maybe you can quickly answer that question.
Thank you, Engineer Madope. The question from Stephen is very appropriate and very mind-blowing because, as I said, the government seemed to have focused on the hardware, and where the hardware, what we are talking about, infrastructure. So, and we are emphasizing on policies, so that those policies are the software to make sure that everything now flow. We need maybe even the policy, the policies, the players, if it's about roads, about airport and all that, but we need to make sure that we have enabling or simplified way of interaction, so that everything from finances, from taxes and all that, so that it is wholesome. We support the manufacturers, the SMEs, in a wholesome, rather than focusing on what Engineer Stephen is referring as enabling infrastructure. That's my input. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Paul. I think we don't have any further question. We have comments from two participants. We take note of your comments, but due to time, I will not read them. There's a request for sharing of presentation if possible. I think this Madam Jora has answered that the Secretariat will guide on this. I think the practice is the slides will be shared just like the other webinars that were conducted. Colleagues, members of the committee, participants, I am very grateful for your active participation. I want to welcome the chair to say the final word and maybe close the meeting for us. Professor, please take the mic.
Thank you, Engineer Mathope. And let me take this opportunity to thank each and every person who's found time to, listen in. I think this has been a great interaction with over 208, and at one point, actually, it was 287 participants. I would like to also recognize Engineer Kare and Engineer Mutinda, who actually were in the previous council and did some work towards, production. Although their focus was on, their scope was a little bit wider than the Kenya we are looking at. And I hope their input also is going to help us now broaden our scope, so that as engineers we are able to look at the situation of manufacturing or production across the globe. I think looking at the comments that have been given, these are very, very pertinent, and we will be able to actually use this to beef up our report or policy. And I believe if at any one time you feel then there is a question that perhaps you feel needs clarification, kindly get in touch with the IEK Secretariat, and they will be able to redirect that to us, and we'll be able to take action. So the policy that is being developed, the discussions that will go on, these are live discussions, and I think there is a lot that we can do to improve them. Now, I've just seen an article where the president in yesterday's AGM was pushing for inclusivity of engineers in decision making. And I think this is really something that we must always, drum up for. And we seek the support of all those engineers who are in positions of authority where they can actually influence, so that at least the engineering agenda is given a first priority in this country. And if that happens, then we will see manufacturing and any other better, sector, thriving for the benefit of every Kenyan. Thank you so much, and God bless you. Back to you, Mohammed.
Thank you indeed for those encouraging words. So members, I think we are at the tail end. I would call one of our members to pray for us, and we will close the meeting. Engineer Paul, can you pray for us, and then we call it an evening for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Also appreciate the participants as we come to this end. And shall we pray? Our Lord and our God, Lord Jesus Christ and our Savior, we come to you this evening with thanksgiving for the session we have had regarding improving the manufacturing sector in Kenya. We ask you, Father, to guide our minds, our steps in making this country great again and reviving, creating jobs for our youth and for our future, so that each and everything that we do will benefit us for your glory. We ask as we depart this evening, guide us, be a blessing to us, so that once we meet again and having achieved our goals, we praise you and bless you. In Jesus' name, I pray and give thanks. Amen.
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 Thank you, members.
And God
Amen.
bless
Good
everyone.
evening.
Amen.
Good
Thank you, members.
Good evening to everyone.
Good evening. Thank you.
Nice weekend.
Good evening.